Hello everyone and welcome back to Dusty Tunes. It's Destiny here. So before we get into this video, I do want to do a little disclaimer because I know that people are going to see the title and see Cosby in it and might be like, whoa, hold the phone. Like, why are we supporting Bill Cosby? Don't worry, I do not support Bill Cosby at all. I never will. I never really cared for him before. But I do want to talk about this series because I feel like some of the content within it is very, very important and we don't have to support him. Don't worry. All of the content that I've gotten for this video and previous videos talking about this series have been from like third-party sites like Dailymotion and things like that. So don't worry, we are not giving money directly to Bill Cosby in any shape or form. We do not support Bill Cosby, and I just want to say that before we get into the video. So let's get into it. The early days of cartoons were a little bit of this, a little bit of that, serving as a form of entertainment, propaganda, and pretty impactful PSAs. We would end up seeing a surplus of these PSA-styled episodes emerge during the 90s and early 2000s, with multiple full-length PSA film presentations also being served up within this time period. But what about the cartoons before this time period? Now, I will admit that I'm not very familiar with many cartoons airing before the 1980s, but I do know of one that definitely checks all the boxes when it comes to animated series that highlight important lessons, and that is Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Now, I have been discussing cartoons and other animated projects for almost 5 years now, and within this community, I have personally never really heard of anyone talking about this series, and I'm not exactly sure if it's because of its relations to Bill Cosby, or maybe it's just unknown to people who didn't grow up in the time period of its release in the early 1970s. There was, however, a film adaptation of the series that came out in 2004 titled Fat Albert that more people are probably familiar with, and it does still carry that charm from the original animated series. So Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids follows a group of friends living in Philadelphia, and it does a really good job of capturing the creative innovation and the adventurous wonder that comes with growing up. Now, before we get into some of the controversial yet important lessons taught within this series, I really do want to highlight the atmosphere and environment in which this series takes place. I personally find it really cool when we see location diversity in a cartoon series. A lot of the times when we're presented with an animated series, our characters live either in a magical world, whether it's on land, in space, or in the sea, or in neighborhoods that closely resemble the suburbs. So when we have a series like Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids or Hey Arnold that hone in on the lives of children living in the inner city, I find it especially interesting. There's just something that feels really genuine and intentional about it, but maybe that's just me. With understanding a little bit more about this series, we can now dive into some of the very important lessons this series has tried to teach its viewers, whether that be simple guidance towards friendship and conflict resolution, or more complex lessons that we learn through life and death situations. So our first lesson comes from the episode titled Double Cross, which is the name of a newly found group of white supremacists within this episode. The topic of race has been used in cartoons, whether it was used as a form of belittling a specific group of people, or in cases like this where they are being used to teach its viewers the impact that racial discrimination and hatred has towards specific targeted groups. Racism episodes are nothing new, but the way that it's handled in this episode definitely hits harder when you realize how relevant a lot of the same things happening in this episode are happening today. In this episode, the kid's friend Belinda gets recruited into a group called Double Cross, a group specifically for special people, aka white people. Now, Belinda doesn't understand the values of this group in the beginning and ends up really confused when she's forced to stop hanging out with Fat Albert and the gang because of their skin color. Throughout this episode, she learns that the hatred that this group has for people doesn't stop with black people, but it extends to Latinos, Asians, Jews, foreigners, and even religious groups like Catholics. George, the leader of this group, says that it's about inflicting fear into the groups of people that are inferior to them, and And throughout the episode, we see this character vandalizing buildings with hate speech, telling various groups of people to go home. Again, something that is very prevalent to current day events. What makes this episode hit harder than a lot of other racism episodes I've seen throughout the years is the harshness of it all. The very clear themes of white supremacy show us, the viewers, that they were not afraid to sugarcoat this very difficult yet real conflict that we are still battling against 5 decades later. Where we have a lot of series that display racism through microaggressions, we get series like Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, where racism is shown out loud with characters marching around in uniforms, mirroring the behavior that we see from extremist groups. Some people might see episodes like this and think, wow, that might be a little too much for a child. But the way I see it, or the way I think as someone who dealt with racism as a child, is real life is going to be just as harsh, if not harsher, than what you will see in this episode. And it's important that children of all races and ethnicities see something like this, because the things that happened in this episode were already someone's reality. Before we get back into more serious topics, I want to talk about the episode titled Teenage Mom, that focuses on, well, teenage pregnancy. The reason why I found this episode to be so interesting is the fact that, to my knowledge, I don't think there's another animated series geared towards children, specifically, that has ever talked about teenage pregnancy ever. In this episode, we find out that the gang's friend Liz had just had a baby as a teenager. It isn't really specified in this episode how old Liz is, but we do find out other details like how the father, Gary, is no longer involved with Liz after finding out about the pregnancy. We also find out that Liz's mom is allowing her to continue to live within the household, which I personally find to be insane, because why would it be any other way? But that's just me. The way that this episode went about presenting teen pregnancy was interesting to me, again, because of the realistic aspect of it all. This episode really displayed the internal and external struggles of raising a child as a teen parent. The thing is, parenthood is going to be difficult in a sense, no matter your age or relationship status, but at the same time, I feel like it is important to highlight the fact that a child raising a child is a different situation completely. In this episode, we see Liz struggle with the responsibility of taking care of her baby Monica, whether it be her wanting her mother to carry the heavier load of parenthood, to lacking the emotional regulation and patience needed to deal with a being that cannot openly communicate yet. We also see Liz struggling with defensiveness, feeling as if she's an inadequate mother, and she even almost strikes her 2-week-old baby when she won't stop crying. Something that I didn't quite understand about this episode was the final destination type situation that happened in baby Monica's room with the fire. I'm not exactly sure why this was added to the episode. Maybe it was used as a way to strengthen the bond between Liz and Monica, but I just feel like it was kind of fear-inducing content. I don't know why it's there, but okay. With all that being said, I feel like it's important to note that although there was a lot of negativity in this episode surrounding teenage parenthood, it's also important to highlight the fact that this episode put a big emphasis on leaning into your community for help when you're struggling. Showcasing community centers made to help parents with resources and training could honestly serve as a lifeline to parents who feel like they're drowning, especially young parents. So I'm really glad that they added this element to the episode, because it's equally as important. This episode ends with a very important message on responsibility that I think everyone needs to hear, because it pertains to many things in life, not just safe sex. It's important to remember that the actions we make today can affect our tomorrows. To wrap up this video, we have to talk about one of the most unfortunate episodes in a cartoon series, and that is the episode of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids titled Gang Wars. Now, the title of this episode should already give you a synopsis of what's taking place within it. But let's go a little deeper into the events that take place within this episode. From the beginning of gang wars, we see the importance of creating safe spaces within a community to help keep kids busy and out of trouble. We see this specifically with the boys trying to fix up a ran-down park in their neighborhood. It's in this park where we're introduced to the character Fernando, who right off the bat is seemingly bubbly and has a passion for making people laugh. It's also in this same park that we're introduced to Fernando's brother Tito, who is the opposite of his brother, seeming rather rigid and itching for trouble. It's then made clear to the audience that Tito is part of a gang called the 33rd Street Gang, and they're interested in recruiting not only Fernando, but also Fat Albert and his friends. Tito talks about a gang war that will be happening with a rival gang called the Green Street Gang. Again, something that this series does so well is not only tackling serious issues, but doing it in a way that doesn't sugarcoat or downplay the seriousness of the circumstances at hand. In order for the viewers to understand how detrimental being in a gang or having any relations with gang members can be, they had to do something extreme, something that would stick with you long after those credits roll. Fernando was very adamant about not wanting to join his brother's gang, but he was still unfortunately forced to join. I feel like this was a situation where joining was going to be inevitable, it was just a matter of when. Fernando ultimately accepts this reality and finds it important to prove his loyalty to his brother. So after finding out that this gang war would involve the usage of weapons from the rival gang, he makes it his mission to warn his brother not to show up to this fight. Sadly, Fernando is too late, and in an attempt to protect his brother from the bullet that's headed his way, he uses his body to shield Tito and loses his life because of it. Tito suffers the greatest consequence for not only choosing this road in life, but also dragging his unwilling brother to participate in it as well. Tito questions why his brother did what he did. He also questions why they would kill Fernando. And the reality of the situation is, in circumstances like this, bullets don't discriminate. Again, this might have been one of those episodes that received a lot of backlash for its controversial themes like gun violence and gang involvement, but PSA episodes like this one could potentially save the life of someone debating whether or not to join a gang. We have seen the topic of gun violence being explored in cartoons before, like the episode of Gargoyles titled Deadly Force, or the episode of Static Shock titled Jimmy, but the implications of a child dying in a children's programming is pretty taboo and unheard of. Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids took a huge gamble putting out an episode like Gang Wars, but it's a move I feel like was extremely important. In conclusion, whether or not these PSA-styled episodes are actually beneficial is completely up to the viewer and what they are willing to take away from these episodes. Sometimes people will consume content like this and have nothing more to do afterwards but roll their eyes. And in other cases, there will be people who see content like this and accept these lessons for what they are. I'm not saying that episodes like these don't exist anymore in modern day animation, because they definitely do. But as time progresses, I feel like they are becoming more and more scarce, and that burdens me because I feel like their lessons are fading away with them. Unfortunately, I feel like as we move more towards a world of censorship, series are going to find jumping over hurdles to be too difficult and honestly not worth the time. I'll end this video with saying it's important to remember the lessons that have taught us to be kind and considerate human beings, but more than that, to be educated human beings. And whether you're getting that knowledge from a TV screen is completely up to you, but just make sure you're getting it from somewhere. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know that you did by liking this video, turning on notifications so you never miss a video in the future, and subscribing to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have an amazing week. Bye!